recorded lecture for the IB Design Technology User-Centered Design, and this is topic A2.1 Design in Theory. We're going to be focusing on how designers understand the relationship between users, the product, and the environment. And I want you to understand this, that designers understand this relationship between the users, the product, and the environment. This is what they do. This is their reasons to be, or raison d'etre, right? Like, this is why they do what they do. Let's define that vocabulary term. So user-centered design is defined as a design process that pays particular attention to the needs of potential users by involving them in all stages of the design process. This is research, concept, design, implementation, and launch. And this is probably one of the most important slides of this entire course, actually this and the next slide. Understanding users' needs, wants, and limitations in the product's environment is paramount. It is so important. Through developing empathy with users and understanding their experiences, designers can create products that are more relevant, usable, and satisfying. So empathy is key. Everything in design starts with empathy. You need to put yourself in the place of that user, in their world, see their world, appreciate them as human beings, communicate your understanding and understand their feelings. This is what we do as designers. Developing empathy with users through deep understanding of their needs and observed behaviors drives superior design outcomes. We're going to talk about the 5 stages of UCD. UCD is founded in research. Designers and design teams use a range of research strategies to understand the scope of the problems that users have and their needs, the nuances of the tasks, and the user goals. The 5 stages of UCD are research, concept, design, implementation, and launch. So research focuses here on the user, the task, and the environment. It provides deep understanding of the user's needs, goals, and their pain points. It helps identify opportunities for innovation. It reduces risks of developing features that users don't want, and it builds empathy for the actual users. You can see some examples here. So if you are, say, a child, these are child forks and spoons here. If you're a child, it's difficult to actually use a spoon and a fork. And so you need to actually try to think, what is it like to be a child? You need to observe them and understand that. Or maybe it's somebody that has arthritis and has difficulty picking things up. How do they interact with a fork? So these are sort of 2 ends of the spectrum with age. This is very young, and this might be quite old. But in both cases, you need to understand those users' needs and what are their pain points? What do they find difficult or unwieldy in using regular forks and spoons? When we talk about concepts, we're talking about how this allows rapid exploration of multiple design ideas. It enables early user feedback before significant resources are invested. It helps refine and validate design concepts, and it fosters creativity and innovation. And when we're talking about concepts, essentially we're talking about getting your ideas down on paper. This is a famous example here. It's Dyson. Dyson drew thousands of sketches and made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, actually I think even thousands of prototypes of his vacuum before he actually pushed it out into the market and tested it. So it's important, and he spent a lot of time exploring ideas. That's what we're doing in the concept stage. We're exploring ideas with user feedback. This is key, with the user feedback. When we get to the design, we're creating more refined prototypes to test with users. This allows iterative improvements based on feedback. It helps identify usability issues early, and it ensures designs meet the needs of those users. And here's an example of that. This is a light, and you can see the number of iterations that it went through before it got to this sort of final prototype stage. There's a development stage. This implements designs based on validated user research and testing. It allows for usability testing of the actual product. It helps catch any remaining issues before launch, and it ensures that the final product meets users' needs and expectations. And so you can see how this coffee, or I'm not sure exactly what kind of product this is. It looks like a coffee pot to me, but it looks like what they're doing here is they are testing it with different fidelity models, right? So this is a lower fidelity model and a higher fidelity model. Here's another example of different fidelity type models. You've got cardboard models here, you've got a real rough model right here, and then a more refined model here. And so that's that development stage also. It's testing prototypes for the solution to the end user's needs with significant user involvement. Again, I cannot emphasize this enough that you need significant user involvement. Finally, you're going to launch your product. So this introduces a product to a target user, provides opportunities for real world feedback. It allows for monitoring of the actual use patterns, and it enables continuous improvements based on user data and feedback. So for instance, if we're talking about things like target users, the target user of this are early years students. You can watch them and get real world feedback as they interact with that toy. This is a mirror corner so that students can kind of get a sense of how light bounces off different mirrors. You can see that usage pattern, and you can make improvements based on that data. Designers need to have a deep understanding of the user, task, and environment of use of a product. So for instance, this is an example of a washing machine, and can a user actually use this? Do they understand the symbols? Do they understand how to actually use this washing machine? This is an ATM. Is it possible for anybody to use this ATM even if they don't speak the language that the ATM is in? So the user is the person utilizing the product. So you have to understand that person and that target market also. So it's not just a user, it's actually a target market. And we'll get to that in a second. You have to understand the user requirements, the essential requirements that a product, system, or environment must satisfy in relation to the users. The user population, this is a range of users for a particular product or system. Your target user, so this is a particular group of customers or potential customers to whom a product, system, or environment is designed. From that, you're going to create something called a primary persona. So this is a profile of a primary user for a product experiencing a challenge in a process that presents a design opportunity. Persona provides a human face and story to a particular audience, making it easier to empathize and cater to the user's needs effectively. So this is an example of a persona. It's essentially a fictional character. It's kind of a human that you've made up and a story of that audience. And it helps you empathize with the user's needs that you're trying to design for. We have population stereotypes, so responses that are widespread in a user population. So this is just a quick example. In the United States, this and Canada, this is on. So when the light switch is up, this is on. But in the UK, a light switch is on when it's pushed down. So these are user stereotypes. A stereotype of a product from the UK would involve the switch being pushed down, and then the opposite would be true for a product that is for the US. The task is how the design is expected to function and fulfill its expectations. Consider the user may have several sub-uses for a product. So this is a group of kids using math manipulatives. How else might they use these math manipulatives? The environment, of course, is the place where the product is likely to be used. So in this case, we've got a trowel. It's likely to be used in a garden. So you have to understand that environment. What are the specific conditions that might affect your product? Does it need to be waterproof? Does it need to be heat proof? Does it need to be cold proof? You have to think of all of those things. A scenario is an imagined sequence of events in the daily life of a persona based on some assumptions. So this is a flowchart scenario of, say, cutting an onion. Again, I'm going to come back to empathy. Understanding users' perspectives and motivations and challenges is paramount in what we do. User-centered research methods are a suite of research methods used to explore the true nature of a user population or of target users. These research methods include field research, task analysis, user observations, interviews, surveys, and focus groups. So field research is first-hand observation of users conducted in their real environment. So if you're observing how people interact with a kitchen, you need to actually go to a kitchen and see how they actually are interacting with the products that they use in that environment. This is an absolutely fantastic video, and it really shows you how field research affected the design of children's toothbrushes. So please watch this. It's an excellent video. Task analysis is the process of learning about a user by observing them carrying out an action to understand how they perform it. The goal of task analysis is to identify aspects of the process that could be improved. So this is an example of a flowchart that you might use to do a task analysis. User observation is a research activity where the user is observed interacting with a product or completing a task to find pain points in the process or interaction. This is a video about the redesign of a shopping cart or a shopping trolley. You can see people actually just observing how people are using their shopping carts. Interview is a method to collect qualitative and quantitative data from an individual of the target users to identify their wants and needs. Another method of research is surveying people. So this is a method to collect qualitative data and quantitative data from a large sample of users to identify wants and needs across a broad population. A focus group is a method to collect qualitative and quantitative data from a small sample of users to identify wants and needs across a broad population. It is basically like a group interview, but the people should represent the target market or the users. So it does give you information about a broad population because these are representatives of that target market. You're not going to do a focus group with a bunch of people who are not within the target market. User-centered design is also about empathy, definition, ideation, prototyping, and testing. So empathy is identifying and sympathizing with users. There's that word again. It's so important to understand their specific challenges and needs. Once we've got that empathy and understand the needs of our end users, we need to pinpoint the challenges that can be solved. What can we actually do? We need to then ideate and select and develop solutions to prototype with the end users. We need to prototype those ideas, developing from low fidelity, but increasing the fidelity through iterations. And then we need to test those prototypes for the solution to the end user's needs. This is another example of the iterative design process. So you design, test, refine, and evaluate. All right, thank you for watching.